Thanks. Testing. Good. How much time do I have?
How much time would you like? Well, usually it's between 30 to 40
Because it
minutes.
depends on the audience as well.
So
If they easily get bored, then I could finish for about half an hour.
yeah, 30 to 40 minutes is the standard.
40 minutes, 30 minutes.
30 to 40 minutes is the
30.
standard. You're inside? Yeah, okay. So how much time would you like? Well, usually it's between 30 to 40
Because it
minutes.
depends on the audience as well.
So
If they easily get bored, then I could finish for about half an hour.
yeah, 30 to 40 minutes is the standard.
40 minutes, 30 minutes.
30 to 40 minutes is the
30.
standard. You're inside? Yeah, okay. So yeah, how much time would you like? Well, usually it's between 30 to 40
Because it
minutes.
depends on the audience as well.
So
If they easily get bored, then I could finish for about half an hour.
yeah, 30 to 40 minutes is the standard.
40 minutes, 30 minutes.
30 to 40 minutes is the
30.
standard. You're inside? Yeah, okay. So yeah, how much time would you like? Well, usually it's between 30 to 40
Because it
minutes.
depends on the audience as well.
So
If they easily get bored, then I could finish for about half an hour.
yeah, 30 to 40 minutes is the standard.
40 minutes, 30 minutes.
30 to 40 minutes is the
30.
standard. You're inside? Yeah, okay.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and thank you very much for once again joining us here
Well,
today.
usually it's between 30 to 40
Because it
minutes.
depends on the
I
audience
always
as
say
well.
to those of you
If
They
who
easily
are
get
online
bored,
and watching
then
us
I
live,
could finish
that we at the centre,
for about half an hour.
Yeah, 30 to 40 minutes is the standard.
40 minutes, 30 minutes.
we at the centre
You're inside?
crave for
Yeah, okay.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and thank you very much around the world who are working joining us here to try to
Because it depends on the audience as well.
to those of you the idea of Islamic knowledge watching us today that we once again I am extremely excited that we have a friend
40 minutes, 30 minutes.
we come all the way from Asia
You're inside?
crave for these ideas. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and thank you very much to try and understand
Because
Malaysia.
it depends on the audience as well.
I've been very fortunate to go to Malaysia and to see the work that we can do. Once again, I am very excited to some degree that we can create a connection between our own here in Istanbul and our colleagues in So Dr. Muhammad Zaidi received his master's degree in Islamic thought in 1995, PhD in the same field in 2006, both from the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization in Islam. He joined with him in 1806 as a senior fellow before being promoted to become principal fellow in January 2014. So the Deputy Director received his master's degree in Islamic thought in 1995. From January 2007 to September 2015, he was Director of Sydney Centre for Thought and Civilization, rebranded in 2000. He joined with him in 1895 promoted. He was also entrusted as the Major Editor of from 2000 early 2016. From January 2007 to September 2000, his other academic and professional was director to Young Professor at Al-Ghazali Sophia Center for Advanced Studies in Islam, Science and Civilization, and he was also entrusted at the University of Technology, Malaysia, member of the academic board of Center for Advanced Studies in Islam, Science and Civilization, early 2018. From January 2007 his other academic and professional was director to the publication series at Al-Ghazali Sophia Center for Islam, Science and Civilization. He's an honorary lecturer at the School of Medical Science at the University of Foreign Relations, associate editor, academic board at Akbar Journal, Aqidah and Civilization, Iran, Islam, academic of Aqidah and Islamic thought series, published by the Academy of Islamic Studies, University of Malaysia. Advisor, an honorary lecturer at the School of Medical Science, University. I'm not going to take up too much of his by the introduction, but what I can say is that his bio is extensive in terms of the works that he's produced. Iran, Islam, his bio is extensive in terms of what he's produced. And today, I'm very grateful that he'll be presenting his work and ideas on Al-Ghazali and the notion of art. I'm very grateful that you're here today. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming to our center. And thank you very much for presenting the audience that we have online. This is very interesting and of course the ideas and hopefully This bias can lead to a longer part of the case here, so that we can exchange our ideas and very have intention. He'll be presenting his work and ideas on Al-Ghazali, Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming to our center. And thank you very much for the information that we have online, which is very ideas. And hopefully this bias can lead to a longer part of the case here, so that we can exchange our ideas and very have intention. He'll be presenting his work and ideas on Al-Ghazali, and Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming to our center. And thank you very much for the information that we have online, which is very ideas. And hopefully this bias can lead to a longer part of the case here, so that we can exchange our ideas and very have intention. He'll be presenting his work and ideas on Al-Ghazali, and Thank you very much for coming to our center. And thank you very much for the information that we have online, which is very ideas. And hopefully this bias can lead to a longer part of the case here, so that we can exchange our ideas and very have intention. He'll be presenting his work and ideas on Al-Ghazali, and Thank you very much for coming to our center. And thank you very much for the information that we have online, which is very ideas. And hopefully this bias can lead to a longer part of the case here, so that we can exchange our ideas and very have intention. He'll be presenting his work and ideas on Al-Ghazali, and Thank you very much for coming to our center. And thank you very much for the information that we have online, which is very ideas. And hopefully this bias can lead to a longer part of the case here, so that we can exchange our ideas and very have intention. He'll be presenting his work and ideas on Al-Ghazali, and Thank you very much for coming to our center. And thank you very much for the information that we have online, which is very ideas. And hopefully this bias can lead to a longer part of the case here, so that we can exchange our ideas and very have intention. He'll be presenting his work and ideas on Al-Ghazali, and Thank you very much for coming to our center. And thank you very much for the information that we have online, which is very ideas. And hopefully this bias can lead to a longer part of the case here, so that we can exchange our ideas and very have intention. He'll be presenting his work and ideas on Al-Ghazali, and Thank you very much for coming to our
It's quite interesting that we find these great works in mysticism or Sufism. It begins with the book on knowledge, the book on Ilm. It's not on any other topics, but he began his great works with a discussion, an extensive discussions on knowledge. And in that important book on knowledge, there is one long section on the reason. Okay, so we may wonder nowadays what is reason having to do with matters related to Sufism. Okay, so that's why from my point of view, I find that in his works, you find that there is a balanced approach towards anything, including in our case today, the discussions on Al-Aqal. I do not purposely translate Aqal into reason or intelligence or intellect, because actually Aqal means all this. And which one of all these are meant actually will depend on the context of the discussion. So, of course, we would not be fair to Al-Ghazali and his extensive works on reason or intelligence in this half an hour. But I will try to somehow give you a very general overview overview itself is very general, but this is the general of the general. So don't expect much from this short lecture. But to cut it short, let me begin by emphasizing that in the many works of Imam Al-Ghazali, when he mentioned Al-Aqal, at least there will be three meanings that can be intended by him. Sometimes it may mean all these three, sometimes perhaps just two of them. But we need to be careful, because otherwise, if we are careless about this, we may misunderstand him. So, in short, by Al-Aqal in his many works, he may mean three, two, or one of these. One is what in a more philosophical kind of works will be regarded as the first intelligence, the first intellect, Al-Aqlul Awwal. Or in a more mystical text or text of the prophetic traditions, it is called Al-Qalam, the pen. But not the pen that we understand it today, not the pen that we use daily, but the first creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? That is one of the many meanings of Al-Aqal. The other meaning of Al-Aqal is what most of us will refer to as human soul. Yeah? Human soul is also being named Al-Aqal. But interestingly, knowledge is also being called Al-Aqal. So the word Al-Aqal, which, for example, reason, when you use reason in English, perhaps you just refer to that aspect related to human being. But I mean, as far as I'm aware, I don't find reason being used to mean knowledge. Okay? But the word Al-Aqal itself, not only in Al-Ghazali's works, but also in many works of our Muslim scholars, like the one that can be considered as his contemporary, Al-Ragib Al-Isfahani. Also, he mentioned in his important work, Al-Mufradat, that the word Aqal also means knowledge. So we have to bear in mind that Al-Aqal in the works of our scholars like Imam Al-Ghazali may mean any of these three, all three of them sometimes. Okay? But why? Why all these three? Because the way they see knowledge, the way they understand knowledge, or in short, what we call Islamic epistemology, all these three are interrelated. You can't have what we consider this act of knowing, the realization of knowledge in human being, in any human being, be he or she Muslim or non-Muslim. This act of knowing can only be possible when you have all these three. That's why you will find that in his discussion, these three will always be there. The first intellect that I mentioned, which in the more religious texts will be considered Al-Qalam, this will be considered as an intelligence that is forever actual. Forever actual. In Arabic, in a more philosophical text, they will use the term Al-Aqlul Fa'al, an intelligence, an intellect, an aqal that is always active. There is not a single moment during which that this aqal is passive, or it is a potential aqal, intelligence. It is forever active, it is forever actual. That is what is meant by Al-Aqlul Fa'al. But as far as human soul is concerned, as far as human intelligence is concerned, or human aqal is concerned, it is not forever actual. Meaning that we know ourselves when we are kids, or when we are still infants, or even before that. At that point of time, although you might refer to us as a human being having intelligence, but intelligence then is not actual. We are not actually in that active act of knowing. Okay? Meaning that, in short, we were at one point of time potential intelligence. We are not actual intelligence. And to be actual intelligence, there will be some process that any human being with intelligence will have to undergo. And in that process of becoming actual from a mere potential, there you will find the function and the role of this actual intelligence, something that is forever actual. And the process through which this becoming actual of the human potential intelligence, this is what, in their discussion, those stages are the one that being called Al-Aqal Al-Hayulani, material intellect, the intellect that is purely potential, and then the intellect becomes activated through some epistemological process, and then it becomes something actual, and then something possessive, meaning like they use the term like al-aqal bil-fi'l, al-aqal bil-malaka, and al-aqal al-mustafad, the one that has reached a level that it can become actual whenever it wants. Because you know that sometimes once we have already managed to go through the first or the initial stages of becoming actual, we know that sometimes you have learned something, but at some point of time you are not actually attending to those things that you have learned. But you know very well that it is with you, although you are not attending to it. But you can attend it whenever you want. So this is the stage of human intelligence that they usually name it as al-aqal al-mustafad, a quiet intelligence, a quiet intellect. But I think that will be the details of the process, but I'm not so sure whether we will have enough time to go into the explanation part of such details regarding the four stages, the main stages that any human being will have to undergo whenever they are involved in this act of knowing. But one thing that is quite important when we talk about this progress of the human intelligence to become actual intelligence, this process is what they will refer to as the process of tajrid, the process of extraction, by which humankind, human intelligence, is able to understand universal themes, universal concepts, although they begin with something that is sensible from the empirical experience, with the everyday experience that we each one of us has been having, but for the human intelligence to be able to conceive of abstract ideas. For example, the concept of man. I usually will bring in an example that has been used by Al-Ghazali himself in his writing. He brought our attention to to the many pens that we have, that instrument that we use to write, and then to compare it with the universal pen. What he meant actually is that each one of us know that you have so many pens that we can observe that we have been using. Okay? There are so many types of pens, many shapes of pen. Nowadays, with all the computers that we have, previously you have also with the tablet that you have, that instrument that you write on the tablet also is being called pen. Okay? So all these are being called pens with different shapes, different colors. And at one time before, you use, for example, a certain instrument from what we call in Malay, bulu ayam.
Read pen.
I mean the classical instrument that they use for writing.
Oh yeah, the feather.
The feather. Yeah.
I'm a lazy too.
Yeah. But all these are being referred to as pen. Although they sometimes they have no, no commonness with regard to their shape, but somehow they share something with regard to the function that make it possible for you to refer to all this as pen. Now, that is what he may consider as the sensible, a particular understanding of pen. And it is something that having shape, it is very particular, meaning having shape, having color, of course, in a particular time and space kinds of context. And supposing that you close your eye, we close our eye, we can still visualize in our memory, while our eyes are closed, the shape, the color of such pens. Okay? Or perhaps the pens are no longer in front of us. Somebody has taken them away. It's no longer in front of us. Still, you can have something in your memory, and something very vivid, in fact. Okay? Although it is no longer material, meaning that the pen themselves, with all the matter with it, are no longer in front of you, but still you can have something of it in your mind, in your soul, your intelligence. But those things are still particular in the sense that but although they are particular, but they are no longer material. Meaning that this pen, for example, is still material. You can touch it. It has shape. But when it is removed, or when you close your eye, and you still remember it, and sometimes you can remember the pen that you used quite some time ago, years ago. Okay. So it is still something particular, but it's no longer material. But it still has the form that make it qualified to be called or to be referred to as pen. But it is still particular. But human being has this capacity not only to remember such forms without materials, but also to come up with an idea of pen. Now, what is meant actually by this in the way Al-Ghazali explained it? When you have reached the level by which you are not referring to any particular form, but you are simply mentioning, for example, an instrument by which the units of knowledge are being inscribed, are being written on the tablet, for example. An instrument by which units of cognition or units of knowledge are being inscribed, are being written. And when you have reached that level, you are no longer referring to any specific form. In fact, you do not really visualize in your mind any particular shape or color, but you are referring to something that is so universal that it can apply to all particulars of pen, all at once. So this ability to come to that general conception, that universal conception of pen, that is something intrinsic and something special about man. And when you have reached that level, then you have somewhat reached a level at which you are no longer concerned with something material, something that is considered to be purely mujarrad, purely abstract. Mujarrad meaning that you are separating that idea from anything that is particular and anything that is material. Okay? So actually, if you can understand these kinds of comparison that Al-Ghazali has been using, you can get somewhat the nature of human intelligence that has progressed from something that is somewhat stuck with what is particular and sensible to something that transcends what is particular and sensible. It's no longer about this material world, but it has reached a level that of course it is still related, but somehow it is also unrelated. And this is something that is unique to human being. And the enabler of this is the active intelligence, the pen that is being referred to. He referred, of course, to the Surah Al-Alaq, the first revelation, the first 5 or 4 verses that has been revealed. We know that Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, khalaqal insana min 'alaq, Iqra wa rabbukal akram, alladhi 'allama bil qalam, 'allama al insana ma lam ya'lam. I mean, the last 2 verses of that first revelation, God is telling us that God is the one teaching man, making man knowledgeable, having knowledge. And this is being done by Al-Qalam. Qalam is the instrument, is the medium by which God acts in the sense of bestowing upon human being knowledge so that man becomes knowledgeable. And this is also the Qalam that is being referred to in Surah Al-Qalam. Al-Qalam, Nun, Wal-Qalam, Wa Ma Yasturun. So, I mean, this will be the way Imam Al-Ghazali explains about human intelligence. So, in that sense, we know that, nowadays, when we refer to the way we understand human intelligence in somewhat a circular framework, we never talk about that supra-terrestrial kind of being. We do no longer refer to that as something that is so central in this human act of knowing. And of course, with that kind of mindset, it will lead to something that becomes worse and worse whenever we talk about human acts of knowledge and knowing. Excuse me, I've been suffering from this cough for some time. Okay, I think that much will be sufficient with regard to the progress of human intelligence. So in the 5 to 10 minutes left, I will be focusing on a parable that has been used quite often by a scholar like Al-Ghazali, and I believe by other Muslim scholars as well, which I refer to as the parable of a mirror. Parable of a mirror. You know that, and Al-Ghazali has been using this parable to help the audience or the readers of his work to understand the nature of knowledge and human soul that is involved in this act of knowing. And it is quite interesting that he has been using this parable, and then by making analogy, is also bringing us to understand that there will be some hindrances, some obstructions to this act of knowing. Okay? So, the parable is about, in any normal situation, when we talk about when you have a mirror, and for an object to be reflected on the mirror, okay? And we know very well, you have a mirror in good shape, you have an object in front of you. Let's say you have this pen in front of the mirror. You know that in a situation when you have the light issue, something of the pen in front of the mirror will be reflected onto the face of the mirror. You will find a replica of it on the mirror. The one on the mirror is not the same with the pen inside the mirror, but it is also related to it in a way. So it is different, at the same time it is the same. So in that way, he draws our attention to the fact that something on the mirror is related to the original object outside the mirror, but it is in a way not material. Not material in the sense that the pen is the original pen still resides outside the mirror. It remains there with all its materiality, but something of it has been taken by the mirror, as if it is a kind of abstraction, the kind of tajrid that I mentioned just now. It is something that has been taken, being separated from the original pen. But this process, this ordinary process, can be obstructed by 5 hindrances, at least 5. He said that you can, if the mirror is not in good shape, meaning that it is not perfectly polished, for example, meaning that you are not using the glass that is good enough, the material that is good enough to become a mirror. For example, you are using wood. Wood can be a good mirror. Then that will be one problem. It will obstruct this act of knowing that should be happening for any ordinary human being. Another obstruction will be if you place something opaque, something concrete in between the pen and the mirror. Again, you won't have that reflection. Supposing that you have dust on the surface of the mirror, again, you can't have reflection. Supposing that the mirror is conscious, of course, we know that the mirror is not conscious. But supposing that the mirror is conscious, it knows that the pen is there in a particular direction, but somehow it is not directing itself to the direction where the pen resides. Again, you can't have the reflection of it. For example, it is faced to something else, a different direction. You can't have the reflection. And supposing there is no light in the dark room, again, you can have reflection. So each of these obstacles is likened to him with something that becomes obstructions in the actual process of process of knowing. Okay? For example, if you put something as a barrier in between, that he likens to the kind of prejudices that you have been having in childhood, for example. You have been brought up in a particular way, and because of that, that kind of mindset has been with you for all these years in such a way that it makes you somehow, it makes it very difficult for you to understand something because of that barrier in your mindset. The dust on the surface of the mirror is being likened to the sins that has been accumulating in yourself because of all the bad doing, the bad deeds. The mirror not attending to a particular direction, that is being likened by him to the focus of your attention. Sometimes you know the subject matter, but since you are so obsessed with something else, meaning that you are not focusing on something that you for example, should be studying, for sure, you can't have knowledge about such things because your focus is totally on something else. He also cited a case, supposing that the mirror is perfect, but it is ignorant of the direction where the pen resides. Okay? And in the other case, it knows, it is conscious of where the direction of the pen, but somehow it is focusing on something else. But supposing that it is ignorant where actually the pen is, this is likened by him to the ignorance of the arts of logic. The arts of logic, the mantik, the ilmu mantik. Because by not having mastery of this important art, you won't know how to derive proper conclusions, how to devise proper arguments, so that you can prove something or you can disprove something. And this is very bad for him. And then supposing that you are in the dark, supposing that you have been trying very much, but you are not being assisted by this active intelligence, again, you can't have knowledge. So it's quite interesting that by this simple parable, is drawing our attention to all those obstacles to human knowledge that we should overcome. Meaning that you can't neglect any of these five. So this is quite interesting. I mean, when I mentioned that it's so comprehensive and quite balanced, I mean that I mean, from the way he explains about this parable relating to the actual process of knowing, you know that he places every obstruction in its own place, and then each is being given a recognition and something that human being has to do in this process of knowing. Okay? I think that much for the time being, I mean, will be sufficient, but I hope that with this brief overview, I hope that you get an initial and overall picture of how such a great scholar like Imam Al-Ghazali, I believe that many of us have been hearing his name. He is of the 12th or the latest part of the 11th century. He died in 111. 1111. Quite easy for you to remember. 1111. The year he passed away. Of course, he's somewhere in Iran now. But I think the legacy that he has left, the important works that he has left, there is quite, I mean, so many things that we can learn from him. So I hope that with this brief introduction to some of you who are with us, many of them online, I hope that this will enlighten you, and I hope that with this, some of you will be motivated to study Al-Ghazali and his many works. Wallahu alam. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I just first of all want to say thank you very much for coming here and giving us this presentation. And like I said, again here, an attempt to try to create a collaboration between scholars from around the world. So my hope is the lack of exposure we have in Turkey in regards to the works that have been done in Malaysia by scholars like you, a increased visibility here. So our hope is that continues. Hope is to the audience who are listening, many who are online, which is that not only do we have an expectation or hope that scholars from Malaysia come here and share their thoughts and ideas, but that we find ways that you can also go to Malaysia and study with the scholars over there so that we can activity. I've had some questions that have come online on my WhatsApp that I am going to say to you, and then I'll open up to the floor. So one of the questions that was asked to me was, you have mentioned Ghazali's influence on the Malay world. Can you tell us about historical scholars and ulama in the Malay world, not contemporary, but historical ones, that have been influenced by Ghazali's thoughts? Because what the person is asking here, that we don't know much about the scholarship in Malaysia, historical scholarship of ulama in Malaysia, and they want to know more about that. Is there anybody or peoples that you could?
There are a number of them. But one of them that is quite famous is Usama Al-Palembang. He's from Palembang, which is one of the large island in Indonesia now, the most northern part of Indonesia. That big island, Sumatra. So Palembang is in the either central or towards the southern part of Sumatra, next to Malaysia. So there is a great scholar by the name of Abu Samad Al-Panibani of the 18th century Hijri, 18th century Miladi. He has a number of works, extensive as well as shorter one, but two are quite outstanding. One is by the title of Siyar al-Salikin, and this is being considered as the Malay abridgment of Ihya Ulumuddin. The Malay abridgment of Ihya Ulumuddin in 2 large volumes. You have that in print. So, but actually, it's not limited to him. There are so many other scholars relying on him, whether producing works that can be considered as some sorts of translations of Al-Ghazali's works, or perhaps being inspired by Al-Ghazali. You have a number of them, but I just mentioned one who is quite famous, and quite a number of studies at the master's level or PhD level have been done on him.
Next question is, you've mentioned and emphasized on the idea of aql. Aql, for many people, has usually been attributed to the mind and reason. But here you have found a way of speaking about the aql which can be attached to the soul itself. Is that a correct understanding of the way you did your presentation?
Yeah, but I think for those of you who have read some of works on the history of let's say intelligence, the Western world, you will find some of scholars doing research on this theme, quite a number of them actually, who trace the usage of the word mind. That actually the beginning of the usage of the word mind coincides with the process that we generally call now secularization in the Western world. Only that people do no longer believe in soul, in human psyche, and then they move to another term simply to avoid having to use such terms. Okay? And this is quite important for us to bear in mind whenever we deal or we discuss subjects like human intelligence, akal. And then actually, in the case of Imam Al-Ghazali, and as I mentioned to you so many times, other scholars as well, we in our Islamic tradition, Islamic scholarship, or I usually call it intellectual tradition, we have several other terms being used to refer to more or less human soul. For example, you have the term like arwah, which in English I find people usually translate as spirit, to refer to the human spirit. There is something in man that is spiritual, that is not simply material or physical or bodily, and that is being, they refer to it as spirit, human spirit, although it can be proven it's not visible, but that is what spirit is all about. Something spiritual. The word spiritual is also from spirit, right? Rohani or roh. And then also you find the word an-nafs, soul or self, being used. In this case, of course, the word al-aqal, intelligence, reason, intellect. Sometimes people use nose. And also the word al-qalb, heart. And also you have the word like fu'ad, lub, and many other words. But the four that I mentioned, akal, roh, nafs, and qalb are the most common one being used. And you will find them in many of the scholars' writing. So, in Al-Ghazali, it's quite clearly, clearly stated in his Ihya Ulumuddin. Actually, you will find no less than two important books in Ihya Ulumuddin. You will find where he will talk a lot or wrote a lot on Al-Aqal. One is that book of knowledge, which is actually the beginning of Ihya Ulumuddin. But you know that Ihya Ulumuddin is divided into four main parts. Four main parts. For each part, there are 10 books. 10 books. Perhaps now we call them as 10 long chapters. So Ihya Ulumuddin itself was divided by him into four main parts. For each part, there will be 10 books or long chapters. So the book of knowledge is the first long chapter of the first part. The first part. That's why they call it rubu'. I mean, it's divided into 4 parts. Rubu'. The word four. In the third part, that is in the first part, the first book. In the third part of Ihya Ulumuddin, you have another book, which is also at the beginning of the third part, and the title is about the miracles or the wonders of the heart. Kitabu Syahri Ajaib al-Qalb. It's about the explanation of the miracles, the wonders pertaining to the human heart. There also you will find discussions on Al-Aqal. So in Ihya Ulumuddin itself, no less than 2 books are dedicated to the discussions on human intelligence. But actually, in the fourth part, there is also another book. I can't remember which book, but it's not at the beginning of the fourth part. But the book is dedicated to the explanation of contemplation and thinking. So if you count in that book as well, so no less than 3 long chapters in Ihya Ulumuddin itself are being focused on human akal. So in those works, you will find him discussing all these 4 terms that I mentioned. And why these 4 terms? He makes a summary somehow there. Then, as far as human body is concerned, these 4 different terms, each one of them refer to separate or distinct part of human body. There are 4 terms, yes, but each term refers to something distinct. But as far as human spirit is concerned, that is human body is concerned. As far as human body is concerned, these 4, each will refer to a different part or different entity related to human body. But as far as human spirit is concerned, although there are 4 different terms, but all these 4 will refer to the same entity. Only that the difference among them are in such a way that each refers to a mode of that entity that is involved, meaning that the same entity, the same human spirit, is somehow involved in different modes of activities, sometimes all at once. But each mode is being referred to with different terms. So, if you mean, if you are referring to that human spirit in its actual state, or with regard to its origin, then usually the term being used will be ar-ruh. For example, in the Quran, yas'alunaka 'anir ruh, qul ar-ruh min amri rabbi. And of course, there you are talking about its origin, where it belongs to originally. And usually the word there is ar-ruh. But if you are referring to the same human spirit, but not purely with regard to its origin, but now with regard to its involvement with the human body, the kind of relation that it has with human body, that makes it possible for it to do so many things. Okay? So usually the term being used when you refer to the human spirit in its intimate relationship to the human body, the term used will be an-nafs, self or soul. I mean, you rarely find them use the word spirit in that context. But if you are referring to the same human spirit, but your focus is now on knowledge, on thinking, on contemplation, usually the word that is being used will be al-aqal. So I hope that with this explanation, which I'm simply relating to you from Imam Al-Ghazali, you will find that why you have all these 4 different terms related to the same being, but somehow they are also different from each other. It's more because of the same being, the same entity is so dynamic. God has made it in that way that it can be involved in so many modes, in so many activities all at once. Just, to give you an analogy, for example, I myself, as far as my reality is concerned, or my essence is concerned, you would call me human being. I'm an insan. But at the same time, now, for example, in relation to Dr. Yaqub, I'm a colleague. I'm a friend. Sahib, for example. For example, with regard to my kids, for example, I'm a parent. Or if I have students with me, I'm a teacher. So all these are different titles, but it refers to the same being, only that this being is so dynamic that it has all these functions and roles all at once. And that's why you use different terms. And that perhaps is the analogy that I can bring to you to enlighten about the different terms that are being used to refer to human spirit. Allah.
This will be the last question. I know you guys might have questions, but Professor after presentation, so because he's here. So this is the last question somebody asked us, trying to make sense of it, but they said that if the pen is the metaphor or particular form of knowledge that comes from Allah Ta'ala, in which it is an instrument we've become accustomed to as the way that we understand the pen. Person saying, when we look at modern technology and the absence of the way that we've now understood the pen, is modern technology a reflection of the evolution of the pen or the destruction of the pen?
It depends, large extent, how you look at the things. So if you look it in one way, you might call it evolution. But perhaps in another way, you might consider it to be the destruction of pen. But I myself believe that as long as it plays that role, it has the same function, you will call it as pen. Although perhaps with regard to shape, color, it's totally different. But because the function remains the same, that's why you will be using the same word to refer to whatever new device that you have.
And Asya from Malaysia apparently told me to send you a message. Give you salam. So, Doctor. All right. Well, thank you very much, Doctor. I really appreciate you giving us your time, your energy, your attention. I can see you're very tired and you're not well. You're coming here. We hope that you're, and everyone from Malaysia that you know continues to come here. Right? This is not a one-time effort, but one that's going to continue. I want to thank all of you that are here. I know it's not been easy. We've had a lot of issues regarding Gaza and so forth. A lot of things are on our minds at the moment. Alhamdulillah, you still turned up. If there are any questions or anything that you want to ask, please, you may take a very short amount of time with the doctor. He's not very well. Please be fair to him. Please, I always say, please be fair to our scholars. We like to consume knowledge, but we forget that our scholars are human beings. So thank you for everyone online, and Assalamu alaikum, and until the next time, I'll speak to you soon, inshallah. We should give a round of applause. Thank you very much for that.
Good shape.
No,